done, I might even do a Torah chapter by chapter study. We'll see how quickly we get done here. All right, I'm Brother Doug. I'm with my sister Marnie today, our sister Josie, and our sister Sadia. We are the Wakened by Yahuwah Assembly in Yahuwah Almighty and Yahushua Messiah. We are pretty much ending our meeting today with a study for the new moon. Happy New Moon Day to all of our brothers and sisters out there. So we're going to be doing a study about, were the Israelites in Egypt for 430 years? Okay, so now we're going to look at Exodus 12:40 and four different versions. Let's see, four different versions of Exodus 12:40. And we're going to see is there's only one version of this verse that seems to be a contradiction with the New Testament, and that is the Masoretic text. Okay, so I'm just going to use the Restored in King James for simplicity here. Very simple, easy to understand translation. Okay, let's see here. And in my opinion, it's better than the Sefer. I think the Sefer is kind of like a ripoff of the Restored in King James, in my opinion. So it says here, now the sojourning, Exodus 12:40 in the Masoretic, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. We're going to see how this causes a huge problem when you start getting into the New Testament and even other places in the Tanakh. Now, if you go to the Septuagint, the Bretons here, English Septuagint, and the sojourning of the children of Israel while they sojourned in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was 430 years. So, because you have the land of Canaan, which the Masoretic text, by the way, the Masoretic text is about a little over 1,000 years newer than the Septuagint. So, which means here, obviously, the Masoretic text deleted the part of the verse that talks about the land of Canaan. So this makes a lot more sense. So that means, give or take, you're talking about, 200 and something years for each land they would have actually been in, which makes a lot of sense. And we'll actually even go to my Kindle here where I have the Targums to give you another witness that shows that it actually agrees with the Septuagint here against the Masoretic. So we're going to go to my Kindle on my PC here. All right, so just waiting for that to load up. Come on, Kindle, you're killing me here. All right, well, while we allow the Kindle to open, let's go to the Samaritan Pentateuch, which again is older than the Masoretic text by a couple hundred years, probably. I would say, give or take, we don't know the exact date, but I would say since there's a lot of things in common, the same differences the Septuagint usually has with the Masoretic, the Samaritan Pentateuch usually agrees with the Septuagint the majority of the time. So I would say probably you're looking at least 400 or 500 years before the Masoretic text. So probably early, first century AD or late first century BC probably. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, oh, my bad. That's right. Their verse numbers are a little off. My bad. So it's actually verse 39 in the Samaritan Pentateuch. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel and the fathers of them who dwelt in Canaan and Egypt. Okay, almost word for word with the Septuagint here. Whoops, I don't know why it's doing that. Get back to Exodus 12. Why are you doing that? Stupid. That was really stupid. All right, now the sojourning of the children of Israel and fathers of them who dwelt in Canaan and Egypt 430 years. Now, the reason I didn't read was there is because it's in brackets, which most likely means the English translator added that to the text. So I just read it as it would in the original Samaritan language. It would have said, who dwelt in Canaan and in Egypt 430 years. Okay. So we see here that the Samaritan Pentateuch, which predates the Masoretic, along with the Septuagint, both agree 2 witnesses against 1 witness. Now we're going to go to another one. Now we're going to go to a 4th witness here. A 4th version, I should say. I actually correct myself and say 4th version of this verse. Now, the Targum of Jonathan probably was like early, I would say in between early 3rd to 4th century AD, which is still 400 years before the Masoretic. because the Masoretic text, according to most scholars, would say was not created until 9th or 10th century AD, which is very, very late into the AD time period. Okay, so let's see here. Now we're going to skip ahead here. I think the quickest way to do this would be, and I'm reading from my Kindle here, anyone that's curious, from my Kindle from Amazon. Exodus, okay, okay, all right, here we go. Let's just backtrack a little bit. Here we go. Let's see here. All right, hold on a second. And the days of the dwelling of the sons of Israel in Mitzrayim were 30 weeks of years, 30 times 7 years, which is the sum of 210 years. So 210 years in Egypt. But the number of the 430 years had passed away since Yahuwah spake to Abraham in the hour that he spake with him on the 15th of Abib. Should say Abib here, but unfortunately the Targums are post-Babylon, and you already see the stupid tradition. They're substituting Abib with Nisan, so just ignore that. 15th of Abib, between the divided parts, referring to when Abraham made that sacrifice to Yahuwah, the divided parts of the bird, until the day that they went out of Mitzrayim. So there was basically 430 years between the covenant Yahuwah made with Abraham with the divided parts and when the Israelites went out of Egypt, if that makes any sense. So, okay, that's what Exodus 12:40 is referring to as the 430 years, not that they were in Egypt for 430 years. Okay, so we're going to move on here, and let's see here. Where's my document here? I'm losing track of my document here. Okay, I think it was on my Opera browser. Show all windows here. Yeah, 430 years in Egypt. Okay, so now we're going to go to Acts chapter 7, verse 6. Okay, Acts chapter 7, verse 6. And let's see here. Yahuwah was speaking to him like this, that his descendants would live for a while in a foreign land, and that the inhabitants there would bring them into slavery and treat them badly for 400 years. So it's not even saying that the slavery is for 400 years. It's saying that they would be mistreated and be in slavery for a total of 400 years, which would mean that basically you got give and take, 100 and something, 150 to 200 for each thing it's referring to the mistreating, the affliction, and slavery. So it's not saying that they're in slavery for 400 years. And this is actually important to understand, because I know we got some brothers and sisters that want to use the Atlantic slave trade as the 400 years. I'm sorry, I completely disagree with that concept. And that's not what the 400 years is referring to. If you actually understand what Acts 7:6 is referring to, it's actually saying they will be mistreated and be in slavery for 400 years. So it's talking about two different things. A combination would be for 400 years of the two things. So again, it's not saying that they're going to be in slavery for 400 years. Anyway, so now we're going to go to Genesis 15:13. I think that's the next one here. Then all right, let me just put this share screen back on. Now we're going to Genesis 15:13. So we so far read Acts 7:6 and Exodus 12:40. Now we're going to go to Genesis 15:13. Then Yahuwah said to Abram, know for certain that your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs, and will be slaved and oppressed for 400 years. So these two events are being combined for 400 years. Again, that's what Acts chapter 7, verse 6 is quoting from. Where Paul is quoting from is Genesis 15:13. Okay. All right. And it says, you shall enslave them and afflict them and humble them for 400 years. Okay. All right. So that's where the misconception comes from, is usually Genesis 15:13. They'll, with a preconceived bias, say, oh, they were slaves for 400 years. That's not what the verse is saying at all. So, okay. The period between Abraham and giving of the Torah at Sinai was 430 years. What do you know? The New Testament agrees with the Targum of Jonathan. What do you know? I wonder why. Maybe because the Targum of Jonathan was written in the early 1st century AD, and that's when the New Testament was written. Just a wild guess out there. Okay, so Galatians 5:17. We're going to go to next, all right? And this is a second witness to the Targum of Jonathan, the way it reads in Exodus 12:40. So Galatians 5:17. All right. Here we go. For the desires of the sinful nature are, hold on, let me make sure I got the right cross-reference. I don't want to make a mistake here. Hold on. Let me just see here. I see here. Galatians 5:17. That can't be right. Period. Let me see. I'm gonna check. Just gonna check, everyone. Sorry about that. From Abraham to Moses was 430 years. Okay. Okay. Galatians 3:16-17. I knew I had something wrong. Okay. I'm sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. Let me correct that. I'm so sorry. I really usually don't do that. Usually I get my cross references correct. Okay. Galatians 3:16-17, not 5. Okay. All right. So we're going to go to Galatians 3:16-17, which you can cross with the Targum of Jonathan of Exodus 12, verse 40. Okay. Now the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his descendants. It does not say to descendants, referring to many, but instead only to one, and to your descendant, who is Messiah. Now, what I mean is this: the Torah, which came 430 years afterwards, Exodus 12:40-41, does not set aside the covenant previously established by Yahuwah in Messiah, referring to the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 15, so as to nullify the promise. This is important. So basically what this verse is showing is that there's a total of 430 years, just like the Targum Jonathan says in Exodus 12:40, between Abraham and Moses given the law. That is what it's actually saying. So again, Galatians 3:17 you can cross with Exodus 12:40-41. Okay. So let's see here if we got any more cross references here to prove this point. Okay, we got Acts 13:16-21, and that's pretty much about it. So Acts 13:16-21. Okay, so Acts 13:16-21. So Paul stood up and motioned with his hand. He said, "Men of Yasharal, and you who honor Yahuwah, listen." Okay, you stupid glitch. Stop it. Yahuwah of this people, Yasharal, chose our forefathers and made the people numerous when they stayed as foreigners in the land of Egypt. And with an uplifted arm, he led them out of it. For about 40 years, he put up with them in the wilderness, and he had destroyed 7 ethnic linguistic nations in the land of Canaan. He gave, and by the way, those are referring to the descendants of Canaan. Just wanted to let you guys know that. So, and he gave our people their land for an inheritance. For about 450 years after these things, he gave them judges. Why is it 450 years? Think about it. We just established it's 430 years from Abraham to Moses giving the Torah at Mount Sinai, right? Mm-hmm. The reason he's saying it's 450 years is he's talking about 20 years after the giving of the law. You have the judges and then Samuel. See? So that's the context here in verse 20. Then the people asked for a king, and Yahuwah gave them Shaul, son of Kish, this is talking about King Saul, a man from the tribe of Benjamin, to be king for 40 years. And I just want to say here, I don't agree with everything that the Son of Man Bible is showing here. I don't agree with the dates. I mean, it's possible those could be the dates, but there's many different Bible timelines out there, so don't pay too much attention to the dates. Okay, so anyway, the point of the more important point, what the scripture is saying here, the actual scripture, not what's in parentheses there, is showing that you have the 450 years when they get to the time of the book of Judges and unto Samuel and then King Saul, who was of the tribe of Benjamin. So that's showing what the 450 years is there. So that doesn't contradict the 430, which was only from Abraham to Moses. So again, Abraham, the covenant of Abraham, the divided parts to the giving of the law of Mount Sinai by Moses was a total of 430 years. So we can pretty much conclude with common sense here. The Israelites were not in Egypt for 400 years. It would have been impossible. That means they were not enslaved for 400 years. And I would assert to you the reason for this revisionist history in the Masoretic text changing that verse is probably, in my opinion, I can't prove it. This is not doctrine. I'm admitting this is me, what I think, not what I know. Okay, that there was a conspiracy going with the Masoretes, and they wanted to change the chronology of their own ethnicity. Possibly my brother Jeff has brought up this possibility is that they wanted to erase Yahusha from the Old Testament, to get rid of any hint that he was Melchizedek, king of Salem, and that he would be the promised Messiah. So there seems to be because the Masoretes are like the only version, the Masoretic text is the only version that makes people think that they were there for 400 years. We just saw almost every other version of Pentateuch literally goes against the interpretation of Exodus 12:40 of the Masoretic text. So there seems to be a bias the Masoretes had. And, if you look up for yourselves, the Masoretes were very anti-Yahusha. They were kind of similar to the Pharisees and Sadducees. They would have had a bias to make sure chronologically that people would deny Yahusha because the New Testament would contradict their version of the Old Testament, not the Old Testament itself, but their modern 10th century AD Old Testament that's in our Bibles today. So to me, that is my theory. I'm admitting it's just a theory. It's just conjecture. I'm admitting it. It's not fact. I can't prove it as fact, can't prove it as doctrine, but it seems like that's the most logical reason why they would change this one verse and try to build a weird doctrine that they were enslaved for 400 years. Possibly, maybe even they wanted a little bit more sympathy. They wanted to portray themselves as more afflicted than they were, to be enslaved longer than what the text says. I mean, that's all I can really gather from that. Just, thinking about it logically, why would they want to change Exodus 12:40? But anyway, I hope that this study has been a baraka to all those watching. I hope that that this helps you reconcile what seems to be contradictions between the Tanakh and Brit Hadashah, the Old Covenant and New Covenant, which are not really contradictions, but more or less a manuscript bias of the Masoretic text. So thank you for joining us. To all of our brothers and sisters out there, have a great rest of your new moon day. Happy new month, everyone. Shalom.
Shalom.
All right, here, let me just end the recording.